This is Family Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Victoria Mensch. And this is the first time we're talking to you. You're a go-to guru for work-life harmony, and I want to welcome you to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well, and I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
So we want to let people know we do have your URL below atlantis.institute/retreat, and that will be fully clickable to anybody who wants to click on that. Not right now, but when the podcast is published. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch right now. It will be on those platforms plus a bunch of other ones. But before we get into the heart of the interview, we always ask a couple questions of any guest that's on the show. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Yes, so it's actually that's my passion project, Burnout to Harmony, and the motivated it. That my main motivation comes from my own personal experience and experience people around me. Burnout has really reached kind of epidemic proportion. I think our pandemic stay-in experience kind of helped to spread the proliferation of burnout. But the good thing about it is that people now recognize when they feel a certain way or they behave a certain way, it's like, oh, I must be in the burnout. So I personally had multiple experiences with burnout, which some of those were pretty drastic and made me do dramatic changes in my life. And I kind of went through that experience, and I helped other people to go from that burnout to kind of more harmonious and kind of happier way of approaching life. And that's what motivates me, really sharing my experience and helping other in the service for them to have a more positive outcome.
Well, I think it's real important to kind of recognize when you're on the treadmill or on the hamster wheel. That a lot of us, our jobs kind of demand so much of us. Our
Hmm.
careers,
Hmm.
like demand a lot. If you're a surgeon,
Right.
you're an
Hmm.
attorney, you are tend to be what your job is. But
Right.
then
Right.
you're a human being, and then you have to balance. Okay, what are the things that you need to kind of handle for your life to have some kind of balance? Because
Right.
I
Hmm.
think some employers might not care if you have balance. They just want you to do the 120%. And then if you can't, they'll find somebody else.
There's certainly there's some there's some circumstances that are like that, but I think what the good thing is that with that proliferation of burnout and really recognition of the state of a burnout, I think there is a recognition among the employers as well on the corporate level, is that it does not have to be kind of this state of well, now this person is not motivated or this person is unproductive, but there are ways to create the circumstances where you can be productive, you can be happy. So you kind of add that additional layer of measurement, I guess, or measurement of success that has to do with harmony. So, but you're right. I really like how you said it, that we're not our job. So one of the ways, when people come to me and we talk about burnout, one of the ways to really step out of that is to recognize that there is a job and there is me, right? And I'm a wholesome person. I'm not just my job. I'm not just my family. I'm not just my community. I'm not just myself. I'm a whole person. And being in harmony with all different parts of yourself, all different parts of your human experience, is that's where that kind of that sustainable way to approach your life, and that includes your work life. So that will actually make you more productive and remove that unnecessary layer of negativity and motivation and stress and so on and so forth. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have the work life balance because a lot of times you have to set boundaries. Like a lot of times I've talked to a lot of therapists that are like, talking to people on a personal level therapy or couples therapy or whatever the level is. And it's kind of like you have to have boundaries. You have
Mm-hmm.
to know
Mm-hmm.
your own boundaries and know kind of other people's boundaries and kind of have situational awareness. and
Right.
there's some things like in my life, I'm a consultant, and I used to
Mhm.
be an employee. I used to be
Mhm.
one of these guys that was a road warrior. I'm in software design.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
used to be on, and it was kind of like, oh, we go and be an expat, be on a road warrior, be on the plane on Sunday, come back on Thursday, do it again.
Right.
And you were kind of like, even though the structure of the system, oh, you go on vacation, but you still, it was a very stressful type of environment. It doesn't
Mhm.
give
Mhm.
you a lot of ways to actually have work life balance when you're on the client site for 3 months
Right.
or
Right.
you're in a
Mhm.
foreign country for 2 years. Um,
Mhm.
so the idea is like I became a consultant so I could still have like this work life balance where, you know, part of the day I'm a software guy, the other part of
Mhm.
the day I'm a musician and I'm a podcaster. I do art,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
found a way to have balance in
Right.
this world where
Yeah.
you can still have your dream kind of
Mhm.
gig that you do for yourself, and then your other things that you're being more responsible of a person. So I'm not just a starving artist, but I
Mhm.
found a way to have a job and still
Right.
be an artist, which is like,
Right.
how can you do that? Because it's supposed to be like a starving artist.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting that you're talking about this because a lot of times when people are describing when they feel that they're in burnout, one of the common themes is that they feel that they don't have control over their time, over their life, right? So it's controlled by someone else. It could be an employer, it could be in relationship or circumstances or health, but they are out of control, right? So there are so many things that are coming at you and you're always in this reactive mode to whatever comes your way that you don't really that you kind of lose that sense of wholesome and sovereignty in this sense. So that one of the ways some people deal with that is what you mentioned. You become basically a master of your own time, right? So you decide how much of your time is spent, on the consulting for software projects, how much of your time is spent on the, creative projects and other pursuits that kind of um, what is it? Fill your soul, right, with joy and
Yeah,
passion. So that's one way to do that. It's possible to do that in the kind of W setting as well. So the boundaries, setting up those boundaries is equally important. And one way to do that is kind of realize what kind of value you bring to that company, and it's whether you're employed or it's your own company. What is the value that you create that nobody else can create? And judge your performance and judge your time spent doing that is really based on that value and not just the number of hours and minutes that you spend there. So a lot of people actually burn out that way. In the corporate setting, there is a lot of flexibility, especially now with the hybrid kind of approach on how you spend your time. A lot of people lie using them. Maybe they don't know that they can choose it differently. Some people feel that if they're not, at the meeting at that time, then they can be perceived as failures. They have to take that 6 a.m. call, 5 a.m. call. I certainly did that in my days as well. So, and then you basically substitute, right? You substitute form for substance. I was on that 6 a.m. call. I did not need to be there. I did not really contribute other than my presence and my name on that whatever Zoom
oh
Zoom
yeah,
chat room. I really did not contribute much. So once I started making those changes that I'm only going to be in the meetings where I can contribute, I can bring value,
I believe, yeah,
then you actually do bring value and it's more important. It gets noticed, you get your promotions, and you save time. You don't need to be in those unnecessary meetings.
yeah.
I,
I
I can
think
tell
that,
you, yeah. So I was talking to someone a year ago or so. He was a VP of sales in the enterprise software company, large company. It's a very stressful job, right? As you know, it was not a big company, it was a small company. The sales is really the key there, and it's very stressful. So every end of quarter is like the end of the world, so on and so forth. And there were some changes in the company. They were already hiring some chief revenue officer, for example. So obviously, the writing is on the world, on the wall. They're probably, going to make some changes and write your position out. And yet he insisted on going to this 4 a.m., 5 a.m. calls. But this is a surrogate activity. Why people do that based on fear, right? So it's really based on not fear. So if I'm not there, then they're going to write me off. But once you kind of start peeling this off and off, is this the real fear? Is this the fear based? And this is the right reaction to the fear that you have. Once you give yourself that room, that gap between stimulus and reaction, you can make different choices that can and will make your life more harmonious and more fulfilling.
Yeah, I think it's important, being a musician, we deal with harmony and
Right.
dissonance and distortion. And I try to relate those concepts to like life because like if you're in a meeting
Mhm.
and you kind of feel like you're the like oddball, you're like the cog that doesn't fit, and you're like, but you start to realize like, do I actually really add value? Right?
Mhm.
Is
Mhm.
my opinion being listened to?
Mhm.
Is it that I could actually contribute better?
Mhm.
It's like say you're an architect and then you're in the accounting finance meeting.
Mhm.
Like, why are you there? Like,
Mhm.
you probably should be with your engineers, right?
Right.
Because that's gonna add more value than to be in that meeting, right? So it's just to be in all the meetings, like you said, it doesn't actually add value to the overall organization just to
Mhm.
have somebody in all the meetings. Like, then are you better doing your architectural reviews
Mhm.
and looking at the future state and the
Right.
current state and doing analysis than
Right.
to be in a room just because you're on some board that everybody's supposed to be there. If it's like not a key decision for me to make,
Mhm. Mhm.
why am I there?
Mhm. Right.
I think we can de-stress situations and try to optimize to like what is
Mhm.
it that you're actually good at. And I think the great resignation allowed people to see during COVID, did I really need to be on that plane from Sunday
Right.
to Thursday?
Mhm.
Do I really need to be in the office to do what I'm doing? Like, I'm a
Mhm.
remote worker. I've been remote for the last 5 years. I made
Mhm.
a choice even before COVID to be remote. I was like, "Why do I need to be on the plane? Why do I
Mhm.
need to be in the Uber? Why do I need to be in these hotels?" Because
Mhm.
I've been able to be very productive without doing that. So,
Mhm.
why it was
Mhm.
somebody's expectation that you needed to do that, and
Mhm.
maybe that's the management or executives or the board's expectation that doing that travel equates to actually having
Mhm.
that success. But you have to
Mhm.
point out, it's like, if you can be successful without that, why do you need to do that?
Right, 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 exactly. And a lot of those kind of revelations happened during COVID as well. Well, it turns out a lot of things can be accomplished remotely, right? And it saves so much time, so many people. They're still, we're still kind of in the process of figuring out what's the right mix. Being on both sides of the equation as an employee, as an employer, I can tell you there are considerations on both sides, right? From an employer perspective, what I see a lot, and certainly what I experience myself, is it's really a sense of control, right? So if I see people around me, I know when they came and I know when they left, and they were in the office all this time, then it kind of gives me a little bit of sense of security, right? And kind of assurances that, well, I pay for something there.
Mm,
But this is not a true sense of security, right? It's a false sense of security. People come and they sit in the office, I don't know, like browsing internet or something.
yeah,
So there is a fine line. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of work that I do, my passion here is really work on the individual level, how you, me, everybody, individually, how you take responsibility for your own time, for your own contribution, for your own life? How do you make decisions that from now on, this is the life of harmony that's right for me? It's not what my parents told me. It's not what TV news told me. It's not what on the cover of Forbes told me. What's that truth and harmony for me? Right. And I have that North Star and I'm moving toward that North Star and I take responsibility for that. So, and once you kind of take that responsibility, everything that's happening around me is really my responsibility. That's kind of radical self responsibility. Right? It's my responsibility. Then you are in that position of empowerment because now I'm in the creator mode, right? So I'm not in the victim mode. I'm in the creator mode. I take responsibility for what's happening around me, no matter what comes my way. No matter where and how it got originated, I'm responsible for that, and I'll create my own reality that way.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times it's about like your dedication to the effort.
Mhm.
So some people might be built that they need to be in a room on a whiteboard in order to have them motivated, even though you
Mhm.
could have a virtual whiteboard and you could do it. If
Mhm.
you have the capability to not have to have the audience right in front of you. Like a lot of
Mhm.
musicians, like I'm a musician and they had a problem.
Mhm.
I am a
Mhm.
musician that I am somebody that writes my own music and I play
Mhm.
all the instruments. I do everything myself in like a one person band.
Oh wow.
Like if you're a guy that's in a rock band, let's say
Mhm.
you're the drummer, you
Mhm.
can't really be motivated to go do that drum track all by yourself. You actually need the band to be there with you. So
Mhm.
that type
Mhm.
of person has a very hard time, and I talked to a lot of rock stars or musicians that had a very hard time in COVID if they weren't the type that I am, right? They can pretty much go and write everything and play everything themselves. If
Mhm.
they were
Mhm.
part of a thing and they needed the other people,
Right. Right.
they had a very hard time not being
Mhm.
able to be in that collaborative environment. And so, like,
Mhm.
if you kind of take that and expand it to certain people,
Mhm.
need to have that collaborative group be embedded in it physically there to
Mhm.
actually get the best work out of them.
Right. Right.
And so if you have to kind of look in the mirror and know
Mhm.
what type of person are you?
Yes,
Can you
exactly.
do that or can you not do it? And then
Yeah.
you have to like know, get that looking glass self and then make those decisions based on,
Mhm.
do I want to strive to be able to do it or do I feel more comfortable being where I am?
Mhm. 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 Right, right. And I totally agree with you. I really like how you put it. So the authenticity really comes to play there, right? So when you put your kind of compass, right? Your measuring tapes is inside you. So this is what works for me. It might not work for other people. They are unique in their own way. And I have my own measuring tape, and I'm going to kind of measure everything against that instead of what other people, whatever influences out there placed on me. So I think that's very powerful. It's very powerful exercise. Not a lot of people go through that exercise, but at the end of the day, um, that's the way to that sustainable, sustainable sovereignty, I would say, and sustainable harmony. Again, to repeat myself a little bit, so no matter what comes your way, no matter what external influences out there, no matter what conditions are there, like you are a rock, right?
Mhm.
Because you have that unshakable internal core that helps you to come back to that core and deal with anything.
But you kinda gotta have a plan. Yeah, like, but sometimes not. Like, I run into people that are stream of consciousness type of artists.
Yeah.
So, I've
Yeah.
run into authors that actually do better if they don't build the world, and kind of
Mhm.
they kinda let it happen in a kind of
Mhm.
dream, like
Mhm.
in a wake dream. Like, they
Mhm.
find the muse and they just go, and then they
Mhm.
go back and fix it, but they kinda just, like, go into a flow state. Other people
Right.
have to be very kind of pre-engineered. They got
Mhm.
a flow charted out, they got a world build, they got a character design, they gotta
Mhm.
have everything all lined up, where other people are more like, "Oh, I let the muse kinda take me
Mhm.
in the moment,"
Mhm.
and every know it is an opportunity, then it's not a mistake. Like if you
Mhm.
come from a mindset that I could have this idea, but if I can go with whatever kind of comes in the moment and
Mhm.
not be obsessed about starting and stopping.
Mhm.
Then you
Mhm.
can kind of
Mhm.
take wherever you are
Mhm.
and go with that and kind of
Mhm.
roll with the punches. Some
Right.
people aren't really built that way. They
Yeah.
gotta have a know what's gonna happen, which you never
Mhm.
really know everything's coming. They wanna know
Exactly.
as
Exactly.
much as about what's gonna happen as possible.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The greatest certainty is that it's not going to be certain, right? So there's uncertainty and everything. So I think in both ways there is still it comes with a vision. That vision can be very articulated and very structured, or it could be very fluid, right? But at the end of the day, there is still that vision that you have and hold for yourself. So now the problem starts when that vision get blurred, right? So like I don't know, I wake up in the morning, I don't know what for. So that's very common in burnout as well. When you kind of lose your compass, you lose that north star, and it's just every day there's something called in addition to burnout, there's a new thing people start talking about. It's called languishing. So it's kind of
Mm,
you're not quite happy but you're not quite sad, right? So you're just meh, somebody say how.
unmotivated. You're
Right,
like,
exactly. It's like every day is the same. It's like I don't know why, I'm just performing the tasks, right? So
"Okay,
languishing. When somebody is like what's how's life, and you're like I don't know. um so that's the key here is to realize that this is not normal, right? So what I mean by that, this is not this does not have to be um taken as is, right? So a lot of myth in our society as well is that um okay, let me back up a little. So if you look at kind of previous generation and generation before that, this is almost the first time in the entire history of humankind when we suddenly start talking about happiness. Like before that, it wasn't even a question. We were such in a survival mode that nobody even thought that we had, like, it has to be a right to be happy, that it has to be a
hey,
goal to be
no
happy or in
face to be happy."
harmony. Right, so that it's not even a thing, right? So your goal is survival, right? So it's like you didn't starve, you succeeded. You didn't freeze to death in winter, you succeeded. So happiness was not even on the plate. And now we're talking about that because all our basic needs, more or less, are satisfied, right? So now we're going up on that Maslow, pyramid of needs. And that's why this is even an issue. So that's why we actually, we are in this like materially we're in such a better place. We've never been in such a good place in the world as we are now. But psychologically, we're not there. Now we have all these issues of like, I'm not satisfied, I'm not fulfilled. What is this
Mhm.
for? So that vision of happiness, right? So some people don't realize that they need to create the what is it? How would harmony look like for you? And how harmony looks like for me, how harmony looks like for you, how harmony looks like for person next to me is can be different. It's totally individual, but it's an exercise, right? So how does it look like? How does it feel like? How does it taste like? How does it smell like? What is that? And you hold that vision. For some people, then from there they need a very detailed plan. Today I'm going to like if I my passion is right, like I really wanted to write, whether it's music, whether it's a book, and then I need to produce 5 pages per day. And that how I go toward my vision. For some people, as I say, they're in total flow. It's like, okay, today I feel like writing. I just need to create, space for it. When the inspiration strikes, I'm ready to write that down. But that vision is there whether explicitly or implicitly. For some people it just happens naturally. For some people it's something that they actually need to practice and create, that this is what I want, this is the life I like, right? And then you make a choice to create that life and live that life.
I think sometimes, people have a comparison trap. So, like, if you're keeping up with the Joneses is like an old term, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
if you feel unmotivated and empty because you look at somebody like a Taylor Swift and say, "Well, I'm never gonna reach that." right? So why would I even write the song? Because I'm not going to reach that, right?
Yes.
So the
Mhm.
point, but the other good point would be like, I grew up loving like underground, independent college
Mhm.
radio, where bands didn't get a billion views.
Mhm.
Maybe a
Mhm.
band has 100,000 fans, 50,000 fans,
Mhm.
30,000 fans, 5,000 fans, but
Mhm.
they were still considered to be good, not because of the quantity of how many people listened to them,
Mhm.
but because of the work. And whether or
Mhm.
not they had a million fans wasn't the point. The point was they had some unique thing that was interesting,
Yeah.
right? So it was like William Blake was not known as a Victorian poet in his time,
Mhm.
right? But he was found to be one of the greatest Victorian poets, but he wasn't known like
Mhm.
Tennyson or Wordsworth or Long. He wasn't known. They found
Mhm.
his stuff later, like
Mhm.
because he
Mhm.
had the inspiration to actually put it down on metal plates.
Right.
So it was found because he felt it was important enough to etch it into acid on metal plates. So he had
Mhm.
that, but he didn't know how to market it.
Mhm.
So he got
Yeah.
found after he was gone. But the idea was he felt it was important enough, but he just didn't know how to market it. So the
Mhm.
question is like, are you in that comparison trap, or do you have the kind of like Blakean will to do it, but you didn't know how to market it, but you did have the
Mhm.
will to do it,
Mhm. Mhm.
or do you do not have the will
Yeah.
to, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So there are a couple of things that I want to kind of go back on what you just said. Well, first of all, I find it very interesting and actually ironic that for whatever reasons we apply a much higher measure of success um, to people in creative positions. So if you're in creative pursuits, right? So if you're not Taylor Swift, then you're a failure. Um, whether for kind of more traditional professions like marketing, for example, we don't say, well, if you're not a chief marketing officer and you're a marketing manager or you're a marketing assistant, then you're a failure. We don't say that, right? So the same way, for whatever reason, we apply that unrealistic um, kind of the standards to people in creative pursuits. I don't have an answer for that. I just find it really interesting and ironic because I myself kind of was in that situation as well. I was into music. I was in musical school, back way back when, and I really wanted to do to go through a music route, music career. And then my parents told me, "Oh, you'll never be a performing pianist." You're just not good enough. You'll never be a performing pianist.
Yeah,
And like you'll end up being somewhere in the orchestra, like a backup singer, whatever, backup player. And so, oh my God, this is awful, right? So I never want to do that. And then I went to a different route. And it's not like I became, world renowned psychologist. I still, went through the, my passion route, but it's not like nobody said, well, don't go and study psychology because you'll never be like Freud, right?
yeah,
So nobody's bothered by that. That I
yeah.
could be like a school, not to diminish, like could be a school psychologist or a counselor or something. Nobody bothered by that. But if you're
It's
not Taylor Swift or
it's like
not
the
a
value.
concert pianist,
Yeah,
then you kind of did not. So for creatives, for creative pursuits, is actually very interesting because what I'm convinced right now, it's my passion. That's how I approach my life as well. That creativity has a value on its own, regardless of the outcome, regardless of
mhm,
whether people like it, well, whether it's good or bad. First of all, it's very subjective. Regardless of the outcome, just the process of creativity, process of creative expression of your soul, right? Of your talents, of your gifts. It has value on its own. It does not need to have any other value. It does not need to be. It does not need to be monetized. It does not need to be super successful. It does not. It's good when it is. What it needs to be shared, right?
yeah,
so
yeah,
so and right now we're in this fantastic time when it's really easy to share that, right? So like we are in complete control and empowerment. You want to write a song, it's so easy. You in whatever quality, you just write it down, you record it, and you put it on SoundCloud. You want to paint, it's so easy, right? So you put it on your website, whatever, anybody can find it. It wasn't available before, so maybe that's where that those standards come in. But now it's available, so it's really meant to be shared. It means to be expressed and means to be shared. So again, going back to the concept of burnout, some of the most powerful exercise I find for people in burnout is to really connect with your joy. So what creativity does, it connects with your joy. That's, a lot of people call it self-care. So you do things
Yeah,
just for the sake of bringing
it's very
joy to you.
therapeutic. It's
Exactly.
therapeutic. Like,
Exactly.
it has a therapeutic, there's an exercise that, when if you're an artist, a lot of artists that I know that keep, they've been playing since they're 12 years old. I'm 56. It
Hmm.
wasn't that we wanted to be, like the Beatles, not that we wouldn't want to be like the Beatles.
Hmm.
But the fact is we have a lot of fun, and
Hmm.
it's a cathartic thing, right?
Hmm.
So, like, I
Right.
know a lot of poets, I know painters, I know photographers, and at different levels, and they all do what they do because of the cathartic nature of it, right?
Right.
They get it out, and then the law of attraction. When they put it out there, they
Hmm.
never know what opportunities may come. And it's
Hmm.
time that, like, if you're willing to not kind of hide it and say you're not ready, which
Hmm.
is kind of like the imposter syndrome
Hmm.
situation. But if you're
Right.
willing to deal with the vulnerability of it, which
Hmm.
I think a lot of people in that vulnerability goes across the board. I think a lot of times it's like people get burned out because they're not really being, they're not self actualizing. They kind of
Yes.
phoning it in,
Hmm.
and then they get
Hmm.
a breaking point and they really want to do something else, but there's a lot of fear about, like,
Right.
oh, everybody's gonna hate it.
Right.
A lot
Right.
of artists are like, not that we don't care about the feedback,
Hmm.
but the feedback is the process, is part of the
Hmm.
process, and you have to
Hmm.
kind of deal with the good and the bad,
Hmm.
and then the in
Hmm.
between. And
Yeah.
if you have to open yourself up to that, some people are so kind of fearful or insecure they have a hard time opening themselves up to that feedback loop.
Right, right. But as you said, it's so cathartic, right? So that creative expression, yes, there's fear. One of the fundamental fears that we have is a fear of rejection. So I put my heart and soul into this, right? And somebody says that it's not good. So I fear that I'm not loved, I'm rejected, I'm not loved, and so on and so forth. So from that point of view, it is therapeutic. Just to go over it, to come over that trauma, which helps in so many different areas of life. But again, just the pure expression, even you don't, you start from something, right? So even if you don't share, just expressing yourself this way, through painting, through music, through writing, whatever that creative pursuit is, just creating, just expressing yourself this way, that helps to unleash so much. It helps to unleash that joy that's within you, and that just like you do things for nothing else but for the joy of it. So you prioritize that joy in your life. You say, okay, instead of washing dishes, now I'm going to go and dance, right? Because
Yeah,
I want it, because it brings me joy, not because somebody pays me for it, not because it's needed, not because it's exercise, I want to burn some calories. No, it just brings me joy. So what it does, it actually it's a way to prioritize yourself, and to give validity, to validate your desires and prioritize your joy. And what it also does, now that you put a little bit of time every day to create that joy, it replenishes your energy, right? So now with that renewed energy, you bring that energy to others around you. That's how you create change. That's how you can be more productive. That's how you can do more things in life, because you replenished your energy. And that's completely, again, within your control. This is one that why self-care is so powerful, is that it really does not depend on anything else, on anybody else out there. No matter what's going on in the world, you make a decision what it is that brings you joy at this point in time, and you perform that activity, and that's how you replenish energy. And that's one of the ways to get out of the burnout as well. It's like, look at your story, for example. It said, well, I'm going to create this container for myself where some blocks of time are dedicated to consulting in software, and some blocks of time are actually dedicated to music and to creativity and podcasting. That's something that replenishes that energy, right, and gives me that um, that joy, that happiness, and the sense of fulfillment.
I think you got to give you things yourself like goals and things that are worth like having the day. Because I've met a lot of people that are kind of in the grind of their 9 to 5 or their work,
Hmm.
and they're not thinking about like their well being. They kind of
Hmm.
like maybe kind of just getting by, even though in this
Right.
world we have a lot of great things that we have, but some
Hmm.
people are they maybe take for granted,
Hmm.
that there's this kind of base level of living. But
Hmm.
if you
Yes.
don't give yourself like lofty goals or things that can bring excitement or happiness or just
Yeah.
curiosity, and
Hmm.
then you've got, you get melancholy, you get
Yeah.
depression. We have
Hmm.
like a lot of people. There's like an epidemic of depression
Hmm.
because people have not been able to figure out where to get into their passions, or their passions
Yeah.
were kind of
Hmm.
stomped out of them as
Yeah.
a kid to say, "Oh, you can't think about that. You got to think about this." And
Hmm.
so then, if they can't find anything to be happy about, anything to have any kind of fun, and their
Yeah.
well-being is like wrapped up in this kind of downward
Right.
effect, right? So
Right.
how do you balance that your nutrition, your spiritual self,
Hmm.
your bodily health? Um, it's all kind of, I'm a Buddhist. There's a lot of balance. Like you got to have
Yeah.
good nutrition, got to have a good
Hmm.
mental state, good like spiritual state. And if anything's out of balance, then you can kind of feel it, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people kind of go on and they don't really do the self-assessment
Right.
as they
Hmm.
like, oh, my body's in balance,
Yeah.
but my heart and my soul aren't in
Hmm.
balance.
Hmm.
You could
Hmm.
have like perceived on the outside, you could look perfectly fit.
Hmm.
Your mental state is terrible,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so then, like you're out of balance, but you might not look
Hmm.
so. And so
Yeah.
you might be able to put on a face that
Hmm.
you're looking great and you're not.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why I like this self-care exercise, right? You have to start somewhere. I think a lot of people actually get overwhelmed. It's like, okay, everything is out of balance, so I'm not doing anything at all, right? So I'm just going to continue. I'm holding this together as much as I can, so I'm just going to continue. This is my comfort zone now. So that's why I like kind of starting with self-care because it does several different things. But the way to approach this, I like to approach it this way. You put on the list. 20 things that you like to do, just for the sake of doing it, right? So, not because, again, not because it's useful, not because it saves you time, not because it, fulfills some other people request or, it returns on, investment or something. You put the list of things that just for pure joy of it, they just bring you joy. That's why you put them on that list. So, usually what happens is that this simple exercise, simple but not easy. So the simple exercise, when I did it for the first time, I was in that burnout mode, and I did this exercise. For me, it took me 2 weeks to complete. So I stopped at number three, and at number three, like, this is it. I don't know what brings me joy anymore. I don't know what I want to do. I forgot, right? So that goes to what you were talking about. A lot of people are just in the grind. So it takes an effort, and it takes kind of a conscious decision to do this, and it's a practice. Like you don't need to you contemplate too much what it is for and why and what's the bigger meaning of that. It's behavioral exercise. So you put a list of 20 things, and sometimes it makes sense to say, well, what was it that I liked to do when I was 7 years old, right? So what brought me joy then? What was it that I liked to do when I was 18? What was it that I liked to do before I got into this job, before I had a family, before I had all these responsibilities, before this and that, and that's how you complete the list. And some of those things can be really, big, time intensive. Some of those things can be really small, and so it's important throughout the day to ask yourself some questions. The question is, how do you feel, and what do I want? And that's, again, that's how you kind of get into the habit of feeding yourself, your mind, body, and spirit. You're feeding with joy, right? So prioritizing that joy, and then you have this 20 list of activities, and you schedule them. So that's the next step. It's not that it's one thing to complete that list, and the second step is you actually schedule three of them, every day. You put them on a calendar. I don't know about you, but I live and die by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So I put them on my calendar. So like, I don't know, 12:05, I go outside and for 5 minutes I sit on my balcony and I read the book. That's my self-care. And you can find 5 minutes. If it's 1 minute, you can find 1 minute. So what's the important part is to take that action and say, I do it for myself because I'm worth it. Because I'm worth it, because it's important. My well-being, my happiness, my enjoyment is important. And I do it, I create, I carve out that minute. That minute replicates into so much energy that actually frees up at least 30 minutes of your time. More than that, what I find is that now I really get into this habit. So what I find, if I feel angry, if I feel frustrated, if something happens and I feel sad, the first thing I go to is like, well, how is my self-care? I don't go like, well, why did this person this way? Why did this happen? Why is like the universe is so unfair to me? The first thing I go to is like, how is my self-care? Did I do my three self-care activity today? And more often than not, I find that so my frustration, my anger, my sadness, whatever that is, whatever negativity is there, can really be tied to that routine. I actually did not fill my cup, so I'm out of energy because I did not do my self care. And that's why I react this way, not because other people suddenly became bad people or negative people. So that's
No,
magic, right?
yeah, the calendar is a real important thing. But I started initially with like to-do list that
Hmm.
they end up going to a calendar. So
Hmm.
I could have
Hmm.
like aspirations. I want to do my top
Right.
5 things, top 10
Hmm.
things, and then
Hmm.
the calendar is what actually ended up being scheduled. Right? I
Hmm.
had an aspiration. I was going to do 10 things. Maybe what the calendar only has 3 of those things. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've decided, well, it's not gonna fit, right?
Hmm.
But then, like, you had an aspiration. So,
Hmm.
is there journaling involved in your process for people to keep diaries or journals or records of what they wanted to do on these to-do lists or calendars? Does that
Yeah.
work?
So it really again, so my process is very kind of personalized and individualized. For some people, journaling works fantastically. For some people, it's a no-go. I myself, I'm somewhere in the middle, but I certainly met people in my practice that said like journaling was really a breakthrough for them. But there is some writing involved, right? So you want to write things down, and you want to actually. What I found is that's much easy, much more effective to write it with your hand, not type it on the computer. It's just a better kind of hand to brain
Yeah, you remember
connection. Yeah, your connection that's going because it's kind of a physical memory as well, right? Your tactile memory. So it's really nice. Uh, Another thing, this is very practical list of things that you can do right now. 20 things. Another list that I also encourage people to start going is kind of your desires, right? So what is it I want? And I encourage people to go up to 100. Try to do no fewer than 100. And this could be, I don't know, I want to have, it could be as unrealistic as possible if it's important to write it down, just to give it, just to give it kind of validation that yes, I want it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have an action plan to get there, but I want it and I want to put it in the team. I want to give this kind of I want to acknowledge this, that I have this desire. It could be like I want to have a mansion by the sea in France, right? It could be I only want to fly, private planes for now. Or it could be exactly, or it could be, oh, I lost connection with my friends, I don't know, 20 years ago, and I want to reconnect with them. So it could be that list, but challenge yourself to go to 100. First of all,
mhm.
what it does, it kind of releases, because so all this kind of unrealized desires, they're trapped. They're trapped somewhere in your body. They're still there. So once you acknowledge them, you put them on the list. You kind of offload
Yeah,
that frustration, and you kind of say, oh, maybe there's something there. So I did the list like that, what was it, 2 years ago, and some of those like completely out there. But surprisingly, I went through that list just a few months ago, and I crossed at least 30% off of that list without even doing anything again intentional to fulfill those desires. It just happened this way. It's just for the fact that I acknowledged them, I put them on the list, I put them away, and then I went back like, oh, okay, 30% of that is done. So I get to dream again. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
it's a desire kind of and a permission to
yeah,
dream,
the
right?
permission to kind of blue sky it.
Yeah,
I'm around a lot of creative people. They kind of
yeah,
think of this blue sky idea, right? The
right,
blue sky
right,
idea is like like the most like fanciful idea, right? The
yeah,
one that's like, kind of out there, and then you go back and you look like, did I hit any of these blue sky ideas? Did I
right,
actually
exactly.
did I actually attain it? I mean, you'd be surprised that if you kind of have an expansive
Hmm.
mindset, like the growth
Yeah,
mindset versus
yeah.
like the limiting belief that like
Hmm.
if you go into it saying, "Well, there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish my album this year," well, you're probably not gonna finish out.
Right,
You're not if you
exactly.
say the same thing about your novel or your painting, then you're probably not
Yeah,
gonna finish it. But
yeah,
if you blue sky it and say like, "Hey, I would like to do 5 paintings. I'd like to
yeah.
do 5 tracks."
Hmm.
Right? And I mean, maybe even like you shouldn't say you want to do 50. Like you
Hmm.
kind of start to realize like what is
Yeah,
possible and what's not possible, right?
yeah.
And you could go toward the upper limit, like, oh, I know I probably only gonna do 5, else I would do 10.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then don't kill yourself if you don't do number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah,
Right? I
yeah.
think you have to give yourself the win.
Hmm.
And the problem I thought people like they focus on the fact that I said 10 and I only did 4.
Hmm.
So then they were like, oh, I failed.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if that's probably not the mindset to have, right?
Hmm. Or it could be like very generic, like, oh, I want to be singer-songwriter, right? So if I've never done anything like that, or yeah, I want to play piano in front of, I don't know, 10 people, what have you, or just I want to play piano, or I want to think of myself as a musician, or I want other people to perceive me as a musician. So it could be very, very high level, or it could be just, oh, just pie in the sky. I want to be singer and songwriter. So that actually what happened to me. I was like, I want to be singer and songwriter, and I left it out there on that list. And then when opportunity kind of just step in, now I do have a song. All right, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that could have happened, but it did. And I'm happy that I went through that process. It's not like I dedicated all my time and now I'm building a career. But for me, it was more of a creative expression. It kind of manifested itself in the song, which I'm very happy about. So things like that, right?
Yeah.
And some of those, like, I want to visit Peru one day or something like that. And it
Yeah, you
doesn't mean
give
that,
yourself that blue sky
right,
idea. Like,
right,
I wanna
right,
travel, I wanna go to Japan.
right.
And
I want to
then
go to the moon. Why not? Like,
yeah,
if
yeah,
it came to your mind, just give
but
it
you never
permission
know,
to.
and if in 10 years, that might not be so unbelievable.
Exactly. Just give it permission to exist. Just acknowledge, like, oh, this is something that crossed my mind. And when you do a list of 100, let me tell you, I mean, it's not that easy to complete either, because like you run out of steam on by 25th.
Are there, like, some key lessons learned in the process of overcoming burnout that I know
Hmm.
you've created your program, you have a retreat, you have this like these ideas about strategies on how to
Right.
prevent it.
Hmm.
Through all the work you've done, could you kind of distill it
Yeah.
to maybe 3 key lessons learned?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So I usually talk about two levels of a burnout. One is the stress management techniques, right? And those, like your breathing techniques, your movement, your meditation. So something to calm down your nervous system and switch from a fight or flight mode to a rest and digest mode. So all our purposeful actions, all our actions with awareness and goal settings and all of that is really happening in the rest and digest mode, right? So you want to switch that and kind of, calm down your nervous system. And the second level is making those changes on the mindfulness and the mindset level of how you build the processes for those sustainable changes toward the new life of harmony and toward the balance and toward fulfillment. And those we touched a little bit about. So that's the self-care practice, your gratitude practice, your embodiment practices, alignment between body, mind, and spirit. Like we completely neglect our connection between mind and body. We're all mind, very little body. So the alignment with that, the wisdom in the body, and so those practices. So and it is a practice. So that's what I want to emphasize. This is not something that you do once. This is a price, like you train those muscles. It is a practice.
Hmm.
It is a kind of a blueprint, and that practice individual for different people because we have different desires and different gifts and all that. So the retreats that we do, and the link that you have at the bottom of the screen here, it's actually to accelerate that process. So the retreat is in Bali. There is one coming up in October, then there's another one in April. So it basically accelerate that. You come to Bali for 5 days, 6 nights, and we go through these practices through that model to reset, rejuvenate, and reignite your passion for life. We go through these practices, embodiment practices, mindfulness practices through workshops. We immerse into the magic of Bali, and at the end of the day, you leave with your personal practice and blueprint with a renewed sense of purpose that can bring you to the next level in your life. So that's the idea behind it.
Well, that's a really, yeah, Bali in itself is rejuvenating. So you kind of pick the right setting, and then you have a methodology and a practice. But like it is kind of like, we're human beings. So like the setting of where we are, like the environment that we're in is important. And so I like the fact
Hmm.
that you kind of integrated a place like Bali into your practice, because I think it is like human beings, like we can say, oh, like I can just do a thought exercise. But if
Hmm.
you're actually in an environment with a thought exercise and then a
Right.
practice,
Right.
then it's like if I have like it's like triple threat, all
Yes.
those things coming together. But
Yeah.
I want to thank you again for being on the show. I do have another interview coming up, but I want to remind people to click that link, as you indicated, Atlantis.institute/retreat. We'll link you to signing up for that Bali experience, right?
Yes, yes. And if you have questions there, there's a link there to kind of, book a call with me so I can answer more questions about anything actually about the retreat or, burnout to harmony or just
That's awesome. I do
chat.
appreciate like all the knowledge that you've been able to convey to us today about the ideas about burnout and different strategies and ways that you can overcome it. And I think it's always exciting to talk to people who have different mindsets and different points of view. That's what we do, the podcast. And I do appreciate that you took the time to be on the Family Electricos podcast. As I said, we were live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. That link will be fully clickable on those platforms as soon as we're off the air. And then we're going to be on all the major platforms, on podcasting platforms like Apple and Spotify, Amazon, a bunch of other ones by tomorrow. And we'll send you a landing page for people to just check it out on whatever platform they feel comfortable on. But thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Have a good night.